I was harboring a secret. This secret was, as Dayton alluded to, I was afraid of the water, which is a problem for anyone who goes to the U.S. Naval Academy. It really is a problem if you go to the U.S. Naval Academy and you want to be selected for one of the highly competitive billets to go to SEAL training. Needless to say, in addition to needing to work on my career decision-making skills, I needed to get in the water. And that's what I did for the better part of 4 years. Getting in the water every day, working on my stroke, working on breath holding, working on drown proofing, working on my stroke to try to get faster. By the time I did get into SEAL training, by the time it was getting closer to the end, we were doing more highly advanced activities like rappelling and skydiving and airborne operations. I came to find out that I had a distinct fear of jumping out of planes as well. For those of you who don't know, SEAL stands for sea, air, and land. And when you are uncomfortable in the water and the air, trust me, you really like it. Training centers on the land-based stuff. But I think this swimming and fear of water episode in my life is a very good metaphor for leaders. You know, you're standing at the edge of this pool deck. This field of leadership is in front of you, so to speak. The water is deep. You might drown. It's scary sometimes, but you just got to take the step, take the plunge, immerse yourself, do what you can do day by day, work on your stroke, work on your breath holding, do what it takes. This source of fear that I had, the fear of the water, eventually became a source of strength when I got into SEAL training, because I had been conditioned for years to be uncomfortable in the water. And in SEAL training, it pushes you to the limits. And so I was used to being uncomfortable in the water. That source of strength then became a source of passion, as I now am just thoroughly addicted to surfing and to being in the water. And that's, I think, the evolution of leadership. Source of fear can become a source of and a source of passion. And that's when performance can really accelerate. I think some things have come easier to me than others, and other things I really had to work on. A couple of things that came a bit more naturally to me include leading by example, which may be dismissed in some leadership circles as the kind of obvious thing. I can say with certitude, it is very, very important to lead by example. As a junior officer in the SEAL teams, if I didn't have my basic SEAL shooter skills dialed in, my fitness dialed in, that's the benchmark by which the enlisted members of the platoon are going to judge me. Even though my main responsibility as the platoon commander is to do mission planning and mission execution, if I don't have the basic SEAL fundamental skills dialed in, they will absolutely judge me. And I think leading by example is certainly worth highlighting. It is certainly worth emphasizing and focusing on. I happen to be optimistic. I happen to have a challenge-oriented mindset and to be about challenges. And I think this is important as a leader. Now, some of the things I had to work on include getting up in front of a group and leading through words. I remember being nervous talking in front of the platoon sometimes. Like, these are, in many cases, people who are 10, 15 years older than me. They have that much more experience in the SEAL team. All I have done is a officer commissioning program. No one cares. I've done Hell Week. No one cares. When you get to a SEAL team, everyone has done Hell Week. No one cares.
Everybody's done it, yeah.
And so that made me nervous. I had to really rehearse before I would get up, before a platoon mission planning or mission brief on a deployment or training exercise. I also struggled, I think, early on in my career with wanting to be liked by the enlisted members of the platoon.
Right.
Instead of focusing on being a leader and realizing that sometimes leaders have to make hard and often unpopular decisions. And this is something that I think many junior leaders and managers can struggle with. I was no different. It's something I think that I could have done better at. I think when I was a brand new junior officer, as I alluded to earlier, there when you get to a SEAL team, you're out of basic SEAL training now. Now you've shown up at a SEAL team. There were members of the team, some of whom were in their 30s or 40s, and they have a vast amount more experience in the SEAL teams than I had. But yet I technically outranked them as an officer.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show that I have my stuff together, and I think they can see right through that. So I would say this: not knowing is actually a position of strength. And what do I mean by that? Well, When I became a platoon commander several years later, at this point, I wasn't a platoon commander until 6, 7 years into my career. I
Right.
realized not knowing is a position of strength because it gives me the chance to enable and empower the members of the platoon. As the platoon commander, I am managing a cohort of experts. Some have been to sniper
Yeah.
school. That's months long. I don't have that experience as an officer. I'm a general manager, a generalist. Snipers, breachers, communicators, medics. And if I'm planning an operation, which is my main job, and to be a ground force commander, it absolutely makes sense to ask the opinion of the members of the platoon. It is not weakness not to know something. It is actually a chance to empower the members of the platoon to create buy-in, and ultimately it garners more respect. So that is the number one evolution that I think I had in my years in the SEAL teams, is realizing that not knowing is actually a position of strength. You think you would react if, when you're pushed to your breaking point? Maybe some of you have been in a situation like this before, in which case you may know the answer to that question. Maybe some of you are in a situation like this right now during quarantine and sheltering in place. There have been these two main episodes that I've shared with you. There was the night under the log when I thought everything was falling apart. I learned that the best way to block out the long-term thoughts is to focus on the task at hand. It was the day that I woke up in a hospital, learned that my legs were gone, wondering whether I could ever find a sense of meaning again in life. Eventually, I learned about perspective, seeing the other side of the coin. To connect these two stories from my life to draw out the common theme, I think it's this: you often cannot control or even influence what happens to you, what happens to your team, but you absolutely can control how you respond. There will be bombs, so to speak, underground, waiting to go off, despite all the training, the preparation, the precautions you've taken. Sometimes these things just happen. You can't control them. But what you can control as a leader is how you respond. And in my experience, there's an amazing sense of power, freedom, and agency in recognizing that despite all of this uncertainty, chaos, so much that is out of our control, that you control your reaction, your attitude, your response every single time. It's yours. And I'll leave you with this. That bomb in Afghanistan took my legs. Can't change that. It was up to me to decide if it would take the rest of my life. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.